Hi guys, it's Katie. Today I'm going to show you how to make this cute little Christmas tree. I have a little hanger on it so I can use it as a Christmas tree ornament, or you can hang it on your mantle, or hang it on, hang it on the neck of a bottle of wine to dress up a gift, or you could just make a bunch and hand out as ornaments to your, friends or coworkers or something like that. I will put the written directions in a blog post and link to that in the description box, so if you want to see written directions, just check down there. And this is really quick and simple, so you should be able to whip up a few in an afternoon. So I have worsted weight acrylic yarn is what I'm using, and you just need scraps, probably about an ounce of the main color for the tree, and then just a couple yards of yellow for the star, brown for the trunk, and then whatever color you want for the ornaments. I used this brighter green for the tree and sort of bright colors for the ornaments. I think it has sort of a vintage color scheme going along, and I like that. Also, I'm going to hang this on my Christmas tree, so I didn't want to use a darker green because it would get lost in the tree. If you're going to hang this somewhere else, then you could do a darker green with like red and white little balls, and it would give more of a classic feel, but I really like this sort of playful bright colors of this one. So I have, like I said, just some scraps of yarn. I'm using a size H crochet hook, but really you could use any similarly sized hook, whatever matches your yarn best, or whatever you have on hand would be fine. And like I said, some scraps of these other colors. You're going to need a needle to weave in your ends and some scissors. So I'm going to get started with the main part of the tree, and I'm going to move all this out of here. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see. I'm going to start by putting a slip knot on my hook. So slip knot, put it on the hook and tighten it down. Let's zoom out just a little bit. And I'm going to start with a foundation chain of 2. So you just need to chain 2, 1, 2. So that's your foundation chain. Now for round 1 or row 1, you're going to put 2 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. So this is the first chain from the hook, this is the second chain. So you only have 2. So look at it from this side, first, second. You're just going to put 2 single crochets, and I go under both loops, or you could just go under one if that's how you normally go into your foundation chain. But I'm going to put 1 single crochet and a second single crochet. Okay, and then chain 1, oops, and that's row 1. Now we're going to turn, and I'm going to put 1 single crochet in each stitch across. So I have 2 stitches across, I just need to put 1 stitch in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the first stitch, and 1 single crochet in the next stitch. And then chain 1 and turn. For row 3, we're going to put an increase at the first stitch and the last stitch and single crochet in the middle. So you will do an increase, then single crochet across to the last stitch, and then put an increase in the last single crochet. Now I only have 2 stitches, so I only have a first and last. I don't have any in the middle yet, but as this grows you'll see that you will get that. So I'm just going to increase in the first stitch, and an increase is just putting 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So that's 1, and that's 2. And then in the next stitch, which is the last stitch, we'll do an increase again. So single crochet and a second single crochet in the same stitch. Okay, so that's 4 across now. And then chain 1 and turn. Now at this point we're just going to repeat row 2 and row 3 over and over again until this grows into a larger triangle. You can kind of see it's already forming a triangle shape. So we're going to go back to row 2, which is going to be just single crochet across. So you have 4 stitches across, you're going to put 1 stitch in each, 1 single crochet in each stitch across. So single crochet, in the next stitch 1 single crochet, in the next stitch 1 single crochet, and in the next stitch 1 single crochet. Okay, and then chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to repeat row 3, and that's where you're going to increase in the first and the last stitch, and then in between you'll put 1 single crochet in each stitch across. So you're going to increase in the first single crochet, so put 2 single crochets in that first stitch, Now we're going to single crochet across to the last stitch. So we'll single crochet one stitch in the next stitch, one stitch in the next stitch, and here we are at the last stitch, and we'll increase in the last stitch. So put 2 single crochets in that last stitch. Okay. You can see it's growing even more. So now we'll chain 1 and turn, and we're back to row 2. So row 2 says single crochet in each stitch across. So just put 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across. One, two, three, four, five, six. So now we're 6 across now. Chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to increase again at the beginning and the end and put 1 single crochet in each stitch across in the middle there. So that's repeating row 3 again. So we're just going back and forth between row 2 and row 3, and you can see this is growing bigger and bigger. And really you could stop at any point. So you can make a little tiny one like this. If it's too small with this larger yarn, it would be I think it would be hard to see what it is. So that's why this one, you see how it's a little bit larger. You can put the decorations on it. You can make a star. If you wanted to do just like this, and you could find maybe a star bead or a star button, that might look nice, but it would be really hard to make a star with this weight yarn that would look like a star. If you want to omit the star, then that's fine. You could just finish off here, add a trunk, and be done. Hide your ends and you would be done. But I'm going to keep going and make this sort of plushier one. Okay, so we will increase at the first stitch, so that's 2 single crochets in the same stitch, single crochet across, and now we're at the last stitch. We're going to increase here, so that's 2 single crochets in the last stitch. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're adding 2 stitches to every other row. So your tree is going to increase evenly. So you'll do 2 and then 4 and then 6 and then 8. So chain 1 and turn. We're going to go across repeating row 2. So just single crochet across. Okay, and we're going to do one more set of rows. So chain 1 and turn, increase at the first stitch, single crochet across, and then at the last stitch, increase. Put 2 single crochets in that last stitch. Chain 1 and turn, single crochet across. Okay, so that is the size that I am making my tree. It's 10 rows down and it's 10 stitches across, and I ended on row 1. So my last row is doing the 1 single crochet in each stitch across. But like I said, you can continue to add rows in that same manner, increasing at the beginning and end at every other stitch, and make this, as big as you want it. But for mine, I'm going to stop here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet a border all the way around. This is one of the hardest things to explain on a tutorial because everybody does it a little differently, and there's really no right or wrong way. As long as it looks good and it's flat and even and looks neat and tidy, however you want to do it is fine. Now your single crochets are a little bit easier because you just need to put 1 stitch at the end of each row. So you have 10 rows, you should be able to fit 10 single crochets up the side. To go ease around the corners, you're going to add a chain and maybe an extra stitch so it lays nice and flat, and then do 10 stitches down. Do the same thing in this corner and do 10 stitches across. So I'm going to chain 1 so that when I come around this corner it's a little bit, lays a little flatter. And I'm just going to start putting single crochets in the ends of rows. Sometimes you kind of have to wiggle it in whatever loop seems like it makes sense. And I know that's hard to understand if you're new to this, but after you do a couple rows, then you can just look at it and say, does that look neat and tidy, or does it look kind of wonky? Is it pulling stitches to make big gaping holes in the fabric that I just crocheted, or does it look good? Now, this is a small enough project. If it doesn't look good, then pull out those 4 stitches and do them again. It's not that big of a deal. But just go around, putting a nice even row of single crochets around the border. I think it's a little bit of a pain, like I said, but it really makes a big difference in making something look finished and polished, so it's definitely worth it. Just putting stitches all the way up. And when you get to the top, I'm going to put a stitch in this very top point, and then a chain, and then another stitch in that same stitch. So this is actually the foundation row. That's the very first stitch that you put your first 2 single crochets in. So I single crocheted in it. I'm going to put a chain to help ease around this corner, and then I'm going to put another stitch in that same stitch. So you can see how it lays nice and flat. If you don't have enough stitches, it will start to pull and cup like this, or it will look bunched. If you end up with too many stitches, it might be kind of loose or kind of distorting it. But as you can see, just putting an even layer of single crochets really makes a nice tidy edge compared to this. So once you get around that corner, you're going to go down the other side the same manner, putting 1 single crochet in the end of each row. Okay, so now we're down at the bottom corner. I'm going to do the same thing I did at that first corner. I'm going to put a stitch and then do a chain to ease around that corner, and then put another stitch in that same stitch. Now we're going to crochet across the bottom edge. This one's a little easier because you're actually crocheting into single crochets instead of the sides of stitches. And when you get to the end, we've already added that first chain here, so I'll put my last single crochet in that last stitch, and then that chain that we started with before we even started putting the edging on, I'm just going to slip stitch into that to bring that around to the corner, and then just fasten off your yarn, pull it through. And that's what it looks like. Now before you cut that thread, you might want to look at it and make sure that the edging looks nice and even to you. You should have a nice symmetrical sort of even triangle shape. Okay, so we're going to do that same thing and make a second one, but for the second one you're going to want to leave a nice long tail so you can sew these 2 halves together. Okay, so now you have 2 triangles that are identical. One has a nice long tail for sewing the 2 halves together. But if you look, you can see the edging that we just did sort of lays on top, and you can see the 2 loops of the single crochet. That's going to be the right side. This is what the wrong side looks like. It just doesn't look quite as polished. So we want this to be the right side, and we're going to have the right sides facing out. So when we sandwich these together, we'll put wrong sides together like that, so that both sides look nice. And before we sew them together and sandwich them together, I'm going to put the decorations. So on this one I just put the decorations on one side, and really this back side is just to cover all of the loose tails from where I put all these French knots in. But if you wanted to, you could put decorations on both sides. And you could put all sorts of kind of decorations. If you wanted to, you could just sew some beads on, or some buttons or small little things like that. Or you could embroider kind of a garland or a swag on there. But I really like the way these French knots look. So to do a French knot, you get whatever color yarn you want and you thread it onto one of these blunt tapestry needles or yarn needles. And we're going to come up from the back side. Now if you can see, there's a few holes that are between the stitches. You see how the light shows through there? You don't want to put your French knots in those holes because they might pull through. So what you want to do, zoom in a little bit, is you want to kind of go inside of a stitch. Even between plies of a yarn is fine. That way it has a little bit of stability and backing. So you come from the bottom, come straight up, and you pull all of the length of your yarn up. And you can put a knot in the back to hold it, but I usually just leave a little length and hold it with my fingers there. So once you have pulled out, I'll zoom out so you can see, once you have pulled out your whole length of the thread, you're going to hold the yarn up and you're going to wrap the needle. So the yarn goes up and the needle goes up, and you're going to wrap 1, 2 or 3 times. The more times you wrap it, the bigger your French knot's going to be. So after you wrapping it, you're going to then point your needle down. And you're going to go in that same spot that you came up, or as close to it as possible. Let's see if I can get it right in that same spot. Whoops. 1, 2, and right there. So holding the loops, the wraps of yarn with your forefinger there can help hold that in place. Now you have your needle stuck in. Before you draw it through, I just pull on this tail and bring them down into a nice tidy little knot. Because if it's big and loopy, when you pull it through, that's how it will look. So how it looks now is how it's going to look once you pull through. So you want it to be nice and tidy like that. You're still stuck halfway through, and now I hold my thumb to kind of hold that French knot in place and pull through, pulling all of that length of the yarn. I'll do a couple nice and close up so you can see, and then I'll do a couple zoomed out so you can see that as well. And then you just pull till your little bobble forms. So that's your first French knot. Oops. I'll do one zoomed out so you get more of an overview. There's really great tutorials on YouTube just on French knots if you're having trouble with this. Or if you wanted to, you could just stick your needle in and just go up and down and up and down and up and down a couple times until you get a little ball of yarn. But I do think that the French knots look nice, little round balls. So we'll do another one, going right in a stitch like that. Pull all of your length of yarn through, like that. Needle goes up, yarn goes up at the fabric, wrap once, wrap twice. Hold the wraps with your forefinger, point the needle back down and go right where you came up. And then with the needles inserted, you want to tug, tug, tug just a little bit, just to pull any slack out. Hold that with your thumb and pull your length through. Like that. And you don't want to pull too much because you might pull it right through the fabric. But just pull it so it's nice and tidy like that. I'll do one more right down here. Pull it up. Yarn goes up, needle goes up, wrap, wrap. You can wrap whichever way, but it's best to do it all the same because that will make your knots look like they're spinning in the same direction. So go in, pull any slack, hold the knot with your thumb, pull the length through. Up, pull the yarn up, put the needle up, wrap, wrap. Hold the wraps with your forefinger. Put your needle down right where it came up. Pull the slack. Hold the knot with your thumb and pull it through. Okay, so we'll do 3 or 4 of each color here. So on the back, you can secure it, but this is all going to be hidden, and unless these are going to be handled a lot by a little kid, I just leave enough of a length that it doesn't come out, or you could tie the 2 lengths together. But it shouldn't come out. And all that's going to get sandwiched in. You can cut these shorter, but I kind of like having all those yarn tails in there, kind of make it a little bit plusher. So anyway, however you want it to look. I'll do one more nice and close, zoomed in so you can see. Go right in there. Pull through the excess, leaving a little tail so that it doesn't pull all the way through. Needle goes up, yarn goes up, wrap, wrap, hold the wraps, needle goes down right where it came up. You see how it's all kind of loose and wrapped around? I'm just going to do a little tug tug, make it nice and tidy, hold the knot with my tip of my thumb there, and pull the length through. Alright, so I'm going to put, I keep going the wrong way, sorry. I'm going to put the a couple more blue, and then I'm going to do some pink, and then we'll be ready to make the star. Alright, so for the star we're going to use some yellow yarn, and I'm going to make a magic loop. So if you've never done that before, just hold the yarn over top of your fingers, palm side up, and you're going to wrap around 2 or 3 fingers, and then bring it up from the bottom, crossing over the top to make an X. And I put my thumb right there where it crosses. I'm going to stick my hook underneath this first loop, over top, and grab that second loop and bring it up like that. Now you just want to hold everything together, slip your fingers out. This tail needs to ride along this loop the whole time you're working, and you're going to treat this as one thread. And you're going to go ahead and put your yarn on your yarn hand. Like I said, hold these together. You're going to secure your magic ring by chaining 1, and then I like to tighten it down just a little bit. And then from here, you're ready to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to put 1 single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So this is the first chain, this is the second chain. I'm going to put a single crochet, and I just go under 1 loop. It makes it a little easier. Single crochet, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the loop. So going over both of these threads, the tail and the loop, I'm going to slip stitch. So insert my hook into the loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull it through. And that's the first point of our star. You make a second point by doing the same thing again. Chain 1, chain 2, single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then slip stitch into the loop. Now you have 2 points to the star. Make a third one the same way. 1, chain 2, single crochet into the second chain from the hook, slip stitch into the magic loop. I'm going to do that 2 more times to get our last 2 points. Chain 1, chain 2, you see the 2 loops and 2 loops. Chain 1, chain from the hook, second chain from the hook. Go under just one of the loops, do a single crochet, and then slip stitch to pin it down right into the magic loop. Right, so we have 4, we need 1 more. Chain 1, chain 2, single crochet in the second chain from the hook, slip stitch into the magic loop. Okay, so now you have your 5 points, but it doesn't quite look like a star. I'll zoom out so you can see what's going on. This is the tail that you were crocheting over, and this is the loop. They were treated as one, but now you're just going to pull the tail and pull, 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 and that loop will shrink down. Pull, 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 pull. And after you pull and it comes together, there's still a tiny bit you can pull, and you're going to have to pull it pretty good to get it to come down like that. Alright, and now I have the tail that's attached to the yarn ball. I'm going to pull that tight so that that last slip stitch that I made is pulled right against that loop now that the loop has closed. I'm going to chain one, fasten off, and that is your little star. Just kind of manipulate it with your fingers to get it into the star shape. Kind of pinch these arms, make them a little more pointy. That is your star. So now we have 2 green triangles and a star, and it's time to put these all together. So the green triangle that has the long tail, you're going to thread onto your needle. Okay, and we're going to put these wrong sides together. So those are your right sides, that's your wrong sides. I'm going to tuck any of these threads inside. So all of the short tails can go inside. If they are peeking out, we can always tuck them in before we get to that point. But like that. Oh wait, this is wrong. See, my rows are going like this. So you want it to be like that. Okay, so my rows are horizontal, these rows are horizontal. Now we're right. Now you have single crochets here, single crochets here. You want to kind of line them up so that they are 1 for 1, and you're just going to sew them together. So I'm going to go under the 2 loops of this first single crochet, like that, and then go under the 2 loops of the other one, and just kind of pull that through, and it's just going to sandwich these together. Give it a little tug, not too tight. You don't want it to pucker, but you want it to be secure. Now we're going to come back down this way, going under this single crochet and this single crochet. So you're going under both loops of both layers. Pull it through and go to the next one and the next one there. And you want to do this all the way up the first side. And once you get to the point here, that's where we're going to attach the star. We have our star here, the 2 tails hanging down. I'm going to do an overhand knot and do a second overhand knot, trying to line them up so you get a little bump there. Get that sort of close to the star. That will keep your star from getting pulled out, but I'm just going to sandwich that in like there. So you got that knot there, and you're going to sandwich it like that. So now I'm going to do that last top stitch. I'm going to go into the back layer. I'm going to go between those 2 yellow threads, and again your knot is down there so it shouldn't pull out. Then I'm going to go through this layer, and that way your star is on the tippity tip top of your tree. And go into the next, and then just go down the other side, and your star should be pretty secure. If you want, you can add an extra stitch if you want, if you think that the star's not secure enough, but I think it'll be fine. That way it looks good on both sides. And then finish closing up your tree all the way around. And if you come across any threads sticking out, just tuck them in. Alright, so once your tree is closed up on all three sides, you can just secure this sewing thread, and then I just send it right through the middle, out the other side. So your tail is kind of tucked in there. Trim off the excess. Give it a little wiggle and it will fall right back down in there. Alright, we're almost done. The last thing to do is to put a trunk on. And you can make your trunk as wide or as narrow as you want, but I just count your stitches until you find the 3 or 5 most center stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but just find those stitches going through both layers. So you insert your hook into the stitch, hold this yarn on the back side, yarn over, pull it through like that, and then yarn over and pull through, tighten down that back thread, and now you're attached. So now you can go through that same stitch to actually do a single crochet. Let me try that again. Insert through both layers. If you do just one layer, that's fine too, but you're just gonna put 3 or 5 single crochets across this bottom edge right in the middle. Oops. Come on, like that. Then once you get the first row of the trunk, just chain 1 and turn, single crochet in each stitch across. You can do 2 rows or 3 rows, whatever looks good. If you do a wider trunk, you might want to do an extra row. And that's what it looks like. I think that looks proportional. So I'll just fasten off, clip my excess, use my yarn needle to hide these ends, and I'm just going to tuck them right up inside the tree. That. Trim that excess, give it a little wiggle so that tail hides. This one I'll do a few stitches through the trunk, just like you're weaving in ends for anything else, and then go up into the tree. Trim the excess, give it a little wiggle. And there is your tree. The only thing left is if you want to add a hanging loop, you can just take whatever color of yarn, go through. I like to go a little bit lower. I think it makes it hang a little bit like straighter. So I've just pulled that through. Figure out how long you want this hanging loop. Tie an overhand knot, and then trim the tails like that. And that is your Christmas tree ornament, all finished. Great. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It's been a long time since I've done a crochet tutorial, so hopefully I did a good job and you liked it. I would love to see if you make some of these little trees. You can post a picture on my Facebook page or tag me on social media. I have all of my links to where I am in the description box below. Again, I put the written directions on my blog. You can check out, I have a bunch of other patterns on my blog from a long time ago, but I have 2 other crochet ornaments if you want to check those out. I will link to those down below. They have, I think they both have videos, but they at least have written directions on my blog. Alright, thanks so much for watching. Happy holidays, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!